Each year, the U.S. State Department releases its report on international religious freedom. The report names countries of particular concern where religious rights are violated. This year, there was one big change. Jenna Browder has more.
In 1998, then Senator Sam Brownback helped champion a law to create an ambassador for religious freedom. Today, he holds that position and is ready to take action by going beyond simply releasing an annual report.
We must move religious freedom forward. We must defend it in every corner of the globe. And that's why the Secretary is hosting the first ever ministerial on advancing religious freedom.
This ministerial, we expect, will break new ground. It will not just be a discussion group. It will be about action. We look forward to identifying concrete ways to push back against persecution and ensure greater respect for religious freedom for all.
A key goal for the event will be to convince how countries hurt themselves by not allowing people to freely worship.
You have less terrorism if a country is religiously free, because people then can express their faith and instead of fighting you through terrorism. And this is in now all the economic and the scientific data.
Today also marked the release of the latest International Religious Freedom Report, highlighting problems in countries like Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, and North Korea. While Brownback believes naming and shaming these countries is important, he admits some type of punishment, such as economic or humanitarian sanctions, should follow.
We're pushing them forward.
To show his priority to the cause, Secretary of State Pompeo called it an international human right and said he was very intentional about making the July event his first opportunity to host international foreign ministers. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Joining us with more from Washington, D.C. is Eric Rosales. He's our national security correspondent. Eric, the ministerial meeting is a big change this year. So whose idea was this summit? Was it Trump, Pompeo, Brownback, both of them? I know Pompeo and Brownback are longtime friends from Kansas.
Most definitely. They are certainly very good friends. And I would have to say that it is a combination between Pompeo and Brownback. You know, what's interesting about this summit is the U.S. is going to be able to present data that they have to these foreign countries to show them that there is a direct tie between terrorism and religious freedom.
I know Brownback's really big on that, but does he really think the foreign ministers of offending nations will change their thinking just because of one meeting in Washington?
Well, I asked him that question. I actually had a 20-minute conversation with him, a one-on-one interview, and I asked him, I said, come on, is this really going to bring some sort of change? He says, the data that we're going to be presenting to them is going to be able to show them that there is a direct tie between terrorism and religious freedom. And if they want to keep the very brightest of what they have inside the country, keep them there so that they can be able to grow the economy, they are going to listen to this data.
Yeah, and I know in places like Egypt, the Christians really contribute to that society.
They certainly do.
An important part of it economically. So many of our viewers, Eric, as you know, are concerned about the persecution of Christians. But it seemed Ambassador Brownback was especially concerned or touched about human rights violations against the Rohingya people of Myanmar. Right. And many of them are refugees now in Bangladesh. They're Muslims. But Brownback even called what is happening to the Rohingya ethnic cleansing. He seems their situation touched him. He has grave concerns for them and their future. So tell us about that.
Yeah, he actually did. He says that he's visited a number of the refugee camps over there, but that one touched them in particular, just the heinous crimes that are being brought against them. And you know, that's, I think, what's important is that he wants to see religious freedom, not just for the Christians, but also for the Muslims and others out there, the Coptic Christians that we've seen so much persecution against. This is a person who wants to bring religious freedom throughout the world.
So what other countries got his attention this time and why?
Well, we saw in the report North Korea actually has 100,000 or so plus Christians. And we also have in Saudi Arabia. He says that is definitely, he wouldn't give me specifically what countries are going to be invited, but he did say Saudi Arabia is going to be getting a ticket because as of right now, the Crown Prince there, he's somewhat of a kind of a rock and roll superstar in Saudi Arabia. He is one that is starting to bring change. We've seen how women are being able to drive now.
Critics of this annual report, Eric, say it really doesn't do much to change the behavior of countries designated as religious freedom violators. So how does Brownback respond to that one?
Well, I asked him that very same question, and he disagreed entirely with that. He says naming and shaming countries is important, but he also wants to bring sanctions. I said, you know, naming these countries is great, but you need to be able to have some teeth to be able to bring some change, real change to these countries. And he agreed with me, and that is why he is looking at possibly economic sanctions or humanitarian sanctions will be brought against some of these countries who are committing these atrocities against not only Christians, but other religions out there, people who are in the minority.
Yeah, this president, he's one who really doesn't hesitate to impose sanctions if they're necessary. So I guess Eric Rosales will have to wait and see if Sam Brownback and the ministerial meeting can make a difference. We appreciate you. Thanks for keeping us on top of it.
Thank you so much, Gary.